On
We have,
the,
oh,
sorry,
go on.
on the topic of boarding schools, I know that wasn't in the list of questions I gave you, but you brought up this factor, and it's something that I when I read history, so to speak, from Indigenous historians and such, that's a common thing that's brought up, obviously, in U.S. history, but it's something that seemingly not in like the social zeitgeist like it is in Canada. Like Canada seems to be going through that contradiction very publicly, at least, in terms of the boarding school genocide that happened there. And obviously, that 100% happened here in the US on a much larger scale, for being quite honest. And it seems to like not be a thing that's socially talked about, even amongst like left groups. And I'm just wondering, do you have an idea of like why there's that huge disconnect? Why it's seemingly such a public conversation in Canada, but not in the US?
Well, in 2014, Canada was found guilty of genocide for the sterilization of Indigenous women. And that sparked their truth and reconciliation issues. And we have yet to have that. The closest we have is the 90s agreement between the nation of Hawaii and the U.S., where they admit that they committed genocide. And that's the closest we've ever got to the U.S. officially going, yeah, that was systemic murder. You know? So like that's primarily why. And in Hawaii, you have a deeper conversation, a more robust conversation, like in places that are more natively populated, like where I live, there is a larger native population. I live like near like 4 different reservations, here, like we had like a books that we would read about boarding school escapes and stuff. Like we had a considerable curriculum that actually kind of tried to talk about that. But like when we look at California, Native Americans didn't exist in the history books until like the 80s. At that point, we just left. We just left California. Nah, too crowded, dude. Going to Texas. And so like it's only recently that people want to even like admit natives are still alive. Like I've been asked to my face, I thought all your people were dead. I'm like, well, I'm fucking right here and I have a mom, don't I? She has parents. Like, what do you mean, dude? My name's Shung Mani too. I don't know. Not a lot of folks with that name, let me tell you. And so like it's very it's this erasure, like a part of the genocidal project is to out of sight, out of mind us. So for a long time we were put on reservations. We weren't allowed to leave. Up till like the 90s, we had to be back by like 10 o'clock or we could be arrested and then fucking put in jail, like for being out past curfew, as adults. There's like this constant paternalism, and so like there's this invisibility that goes on, right, where the erasure becomes so systemic, so naturalized that people they never think about natives. When we're talking about Black issues, like you can look at native statistics in native dominated areas. We have overrepresentation over Black populations of prison service, like it's like it's based on where we're concentrated, of course, but like if you go per capita, you start to see the same issues happening, if not worse, and it's not like a competition or anything. It's that this is the future. This is the autogenocidal project goal, is to subdue the colonized nations ability to stand up. We need to be kept down as long as possible. That's why they don't give us tractors, they don't give us seeds. We just now have an irrigation pipeline, and most people's connection to it is not to garden. They're drinking irrigation water. That's not healthy, if you didn't know that. But that's the only running water on my reservation. Like, and then it's a $10,000 hookup to be poisoned, so like a lot of people still use wells if you're lucky enough to have one, and or if it didn't freeze over winter, very cold place, or they go down to the creek or the river that they live closest to. Sometimes it's miles of walking. It's third world living conditions here in the United States. And most people can't even speak to it. They're not aware. We had people from Guatemala with the group Codica come to Pine Ridge, and they said, wow, you're poorer than us. You never know what to say to people when they say that to you, because you're like, oh, really?